Why people have left religion and spirituality is because science and medicine and technology have provided more for those people than religion has.
Whoa. There are staunch followers of the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Hindu philosophy, the Vedic philosophy, the mythology. There's not enough belief system in it. How do you prove the existence?
We've never been able to connect the dots between how God interacts with the world, fundamental level.
What are you saying? Taking that belief system, that existence of God or the creation of God in a science lab,
yes,
and proving the existence of it. How does that happen? Why does an experimentation, why do I have to believe in science? Why do I have to see a test happen and see the proof before believing in something? First of all, why is it important to have a God? Why is it important for a third person or an intermediary to sort of mediate between me and God? Why can't I have a direct connection with God? I'm sure there will be more people who will come up to you and say, Dahryn, I'm sorry, but this is absolute nonsense. What a blessing essentially means for people who are listening. Does it also help women in their menstrual wellness?
I can say clinically, we've seen resolution.
Yeah.
Right? Millions of dollars sometimes just to conduct one clinical trial.
And to give you context in the Indian setup, we've all been raised with the thought that there is God. Mm-hmm. Not many of us have questioned it, maybe during our childhood. But growing up, some of us take the liberty to ask ourselves or ask our parents or ask our seniors or ask our spiritual gurus that, hey, does God exist? And that seems to be like $1 million question still.
Yeah.
Does God exist? Does God exist? And some of the answers that I've been receiving is there is God, there is a spiritual power, there is a higher force, but none of it can prove the existence of God.
Right.
Because we've not seen God. Have you seen God? No, I've not seen God. Have I felt the presence of God? Yes, I have felt the presence of God. Yes. Maybe there could be stories or incidents where I've felt that there is a spiritual power working in my favor. I always say the universe works in my favor. Always. Right. And every time I speak about this, I get goosebumps.
That's true.
Where I say that the universe always works in my favor. Yes. So how do you prove the existence of God?
So there's no direct way to measure God, right? God is not like a physical entity like you and me. God is not a person, right? Even though God maybe as an expression can be a person.
Yeah.
Right? But the actual source of God is not an individual. It's not a person. So there's no technology. There's no man-made way to actually pinpoint and say, that's God. That's what God looks like. God doesn't have a dimension, right? God doesn't have a weight or, all those traditional scientific measurements that we use. So that's why God has been notoriously evasive to science and science scrutiny. Yeah. Now, but there's a phenomena that I'm sure you've heard of, and it's called gravity.
Yep.
Right? Do we believe in gravity?
I mean,
probably.
Yeah.
Right? It's taught even in the most basic education. It'll fall.
It
right?
will fall. It will not fly in the air. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But we've come to a conclusion that is caused by gravity. Now, we can't say that this itself, that's the act, right? Mm-hmm. That is the expression of gravity, right? We can measure the force of gravity, right? The effects of it. But to this day, science has not been able to define gravity and what it actually is on a fundamental level.
What are you saying?
We still don't know what gravity is. There are all these theories about gravity. Newton has a theory. Einstein has a theory. Newton was like, it's two different objects' masses interacting with each other. Einstein was like, it's the curvature of space and time.
Okay.
Everybody has different theories about gravity. None of them have been proven as what gravity fundamentally is. Now, we have enough of being able to measure the effects, right, that this is caused by gravity, so we can measure, right, the velocity of this falling and all those measurements, the inertia, all these things we can measure, right, within a certain variable of accuracy, right? And so you take those measurements and you can safely conclude gravity's real. We know gravity's real. We can accept its reality even though we don't know what it is yet. Okay, and it's taught in our most basic education. It's taught to children, right? It's the foundation of all of our educational systems. And in most countries that, have a sophisticated educational system, gravity is taught there, right? So science has accepted it widely by everywhere, every means. Now, The issue with God is, of course, the same thing. It's difficult to measure in the same way gravity fundamentally is difficult to measure and pinpoint and understand, right? But we measure the effects. Same way you take God, right? What did God do? God created all of us. God created everything. Mm-hmm. So you take God's creation, which does have, right, scientific measurements. Mm-hmm. It does have weight, viscosity. It does have, tangible, measurable qualities to it. Mm-hmm. So the issue is that we've never been able to connect the dots between how God interacts with the world.
So you're saying there's no direct measure to measure God in itself?
Right.
The idea is to measure the effects of God.
Exactly. Just the same way you measure gravity, the effects of gravity. You can
and how do you measure the effects of God?
There's a nature to something called consciousness. That consciousness is the most fundamental reality, right? What is consciousness in the context of God? Consciousness is the grace of God. It's God's expression. If you read all of the most, basic and all of the origin of religion always refers to scripture that talks about God creating something out of nothing, that nothing existed before. God created things and suddenly things started existing. In the Bible, even in Vedic texts, right, all of that says that God, through God's desire or God's will or whatever it may be, God's order or instruction or vibration, right, life suddenly came to be. God created this universe out of the grace of God, or you can say out of consciousness to experience God's glory. That's it. And so obviously science has different ideas about the origin story of creation, but let's assume that that's true, right? Then we're assuming that consciousness is fundamental, not matter, right? And then we look at the scientific understanding, which is matter is fundamental and consciousness is a byproduct, unless you get to niche science studies like, Max Planck, when we get to quantum experiments where we say maybe consciousness is fundamental, but it's never been scientifically proven. Decades of research, and he came to the conclusion that he really felt consciousness was fundamental, but not effectively proven. In the same way, religion, spirituality has been saying the same thing for eons, that consciousness is fundamental, the grace of God is fundamental, started everything. But at the same time, there's no ability to take that and say, if God is omnipresent, how do you take that, put in a laboratory? How do you take that fundamentality of God and take it and measure it? Religion to this day has never come forward to do that. So they've limited themselves to a faith-based reality, and science, because of the lack of empirical data and because human testimonial is so sometimes fabricated or subject to fabrication, even unwillingly, right? I'd like to give this example of how subjectable, right, human testimony is to fabrication. When even the person who's recalling memory doesn't even know they're recalling a fabricated memory. That's been historically proven scientifically, that humans' memories are so faulty that they can believe something that never actually happened to them and believe it actually happened to them.
Is it hallucination of any sort, or?
I mean, that obviously can happen to people, hallucinations. But what I'm talking about is something that is universal to all people, not just hallucinations.
Got it.
So, I mean, I think everybody probably is familiar with 9/11, what happened in America, 9/11, right? September 11th, 2001, where the terrorist attack hit the Twin Towers, right? And so there was a study that was conducted in America where they took people, some people were there when it happened, witnessed the horrors and everything that happened that day. And then there were people who were never a part of it, but saw a bunch of those testimonials, were part of the discussion, got really emotionally involved in the stories and the discussion and all of it, to the point in which afterwards they questioned everybody. And the people who were so emotionally involved and heard all the witness testimonies actually thought they were there when they weren't. They actually thought that they were physically there.
How does that happen? Is it some
memories generated in the moment? Memory's not something that's stored in the data bank of your brain. Memory is recalled every time you recall a memory. It's created on the spot by the brain.
So if I were to give you an Indian context, in terms of spirituality, in terms of God, there are a lot of belief systems in India. Right. In terms of you are sitting here, we are having a conversation. I could have a belief system. You step out, you meet 5 more people. Every one of them will have a different perception to what their God is, what their spirituality is, what their belief in a higher force is.
Yeah.
And this is prevalent across the country. So a lot of people would say, oh, I believe in this, or I believe in this. But when you talk about existence, does God exist? A lot of people will think, oh yeah, God exists. I see it. I pray to him every single day.
Yeah.
I light a diya. I do puja. I do the mantra. I do the jap. But have they seen them?
Right.
I don't think any human has seen God.
Right.
But like I mentioned earlier, have we felt the presence of God? At every step, we have felt the presence of God.
Yes.
But when you say you're taking that belief system, that existence of God or the creation of God in a science lab,
yes,
and proving the existence of it, how does that happen? What's the entire process like? Because in India, like I was talking to you about, our belief system is formed from the kind of things that we've experienced. Our parents have taught us something, our teachers have taught us something, and that's how our belief system have formed. Once you become an adult, you read books, you listen to podcasts, you listen to experts who have done a few things in the field, and that's how you realize that, maybe God exists.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of brainwashing as well.
Absolutely.
Which happens in India.
Yes.
And everybody knows about this. There's not
everywhere. It's prevalent everywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of spiritual gurus who fake their spirituality, who fake their religiousness in the name of God. Yes. And it's become a commercial thing. I can speak for India because I've been here for the large part of my life. It's become commercial.
Yeah.
It's all a money-making tool at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's so faith-based, then why are you commercializing it?
Right.
So there are a lot of thoughts, but my primary question to you is, when did you realize that science needs to be integrated here? And that's the only sort of true level of measurement of, say, God or spirituality.
Yeah, I feel like religion and science need each other. I mean, when we're getting into religion, right, that is so true, that corruption, right, scammers, con artists are so prevalent in that industry. And I call it an industry because that's what it's become. And
so you're saying religion has become an industry?
Yeah, absolutely. It has regressed from what the true teachings have been.
So
there's still good parts of it, but what it's become on the scale of the masses is an industry.
But do you believe in God?
I do.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to say religion has become industrialized. And I am very religious. I'm very spiritual, and I still believe that. So, and that's a pain point for me because I had these like you said, I had these incredible experiences, like direct experiences with God, even outside of the context of religion, right? Where I firmly knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, no matter what anybody could prove or say to me otherwise, that God was real. That's how strong and potent those experiences were to me. So I knew early on, God is real. And that was also something that was very frustrating for me because for in America, right, you have a mixture. Maybe in India, there are a lot more people who believe in God. In America, you have like maybe 50-50.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, a lot more people are leaving religion in droves, right? The church I grew up in, I grew up Christian, as well as a little bit of, yoga with Yogananda and all that. But I grew up primarily Christian. And the church I went to had an overflow room. It was a massive church. It would be so full of people that people would go out into the overflow room. Now, since the last year I've been there just to visit and see its status, 5 people. Right? There's been a huge regression, a huge decline in people's interest for religion and the need for it, as well as people's trust in it. And so this is also why you have places like in India where you people take advantage of people's faith and belief.
Yeah.
When you get to a situation where people know something's true, right? They believe in God 100%. And then you also get into a pain point of people's lives when they're desperate. They're desperate for answers. They're desperate for help. They're desperate to connect to that source. They're desperate for anything, just relief from pain. They want to connect. They don't want to feel isolated, right? They lack a community. They don't feel understood by other people. Many of these reasons are all why people end up with religion to begin with, is all these reasons, not just because they believe in God. You don't really need religion to believe in God, but a lot of people, why they end up with a religious community and with a leader is because there's something that they want out of it. They want either them to give them some kind of answer. They want to put their trust in someone. They want to hand over responsibility to someone, right? They want to just feel like they're not isolated and alone in the world. They want to have a community. So you get people with desperation and need. You get a lot of promises that are being given to them. And like I said, our psychologies are so powerful, they can persuade us of anything. So faith in the wrong hands can be violent and destructive for our lives. It can waste our time. It can exploit us. It can damage our resources. It can tell us to throw out our family and our relationships. In many cases, if you look at any avenue, any place that science has been a part of, right, that science has developed or been any kind of instrumental part of, you look at technology, you look at medicine, doctors, therapists, you look at, any major thing that most of humanity depends on now and finds reliable, there's always an eligibility criteria involved in that. There's always like a degree, an education. There's a certificate, there's qualifications, right? And then there's rigors, there's standardized testing, there's things that fall into place that make you eligible to be able to even fulfill that role in someone's life.
Correct.
If
Absolutely.
you don't, like a doctor who doesn't do that, you can't just take any doctor off the street and tell them to perform surgery, right? They could damage that person permanently for the rest of their life. They could kill them. Right. And yet we don't have these standards for religious and spiritual leaders. A lot of times their word is gospel. Their self-proclamation of their own enlightenment or their own spiritual status and connection to God is all that we have to rely on. And then the subjectivity of very, questionable human testimonial. And none of these spiritual leaders, I don't know of any to my knowledge, that have come forth and even attempted to prove their practices, their rituals, their dogmas, whatever they're preaching, whatever they're trying to teach within a scientific arena. My husband, Guruji, Dahryn Trivedi, he was the first I've ever heard of. The first I've ever heard of that's done that. I've heard of small groups of psychological data. I've heard of little things like that. Again, subjective, very likely to be influenced. Right? Even certain physiological parameters are influenced by our own psychology. So you get that tiny subjective data that's very questionable, and they start using that, saying clinically validated, right? Same thing, the wellness industry, clinical validation, scientifically proven. All these things are thrown around like gospel again without the credibility of science. A lot of pseudoscience, a lot of testimonials. People will take one success story and use it against the other millions of failures that have never experienced anything out of it, but still cling to their own hope and faith that something will happen one day, right? Or their own hope is enough to make them feel better because there's something fulfilling about finding someone that gives you hope. So that itself gives you like a little short-term ecstasy high, feeling like I found something.
But is it placebo? Is it the fact that that something's gonna have a positive impact on you or a positive effect on you, you tend to believe it further. And so for example, when you consume a particular drug or when you consume alcohol, it's gonna give you that mental high, it's gonna give you that temporary high. Right. And because of that, you tend to feel that way. Even if, so again, example could have been, say when it comes to religion, or when it comes to God, for example.
Yes.
Just because when you go to a priest, or a pandit, and he or she gives you, say, a particular mantra to do the job every single day, every single night, do this.
Yes.
What I'm trying to understand is it placebo? Is it really just because it's going to have a positive impact, you keep doing it? Maybe you're not feeling the high, maybe you're not feeling the positive impact, but just because it's going to have a positive impact, you tend to believe it.
Placebo has been scientifically proven. It's a real phenomenon, right? It's not just a made-up scenario that we have labeled as placebo. It's a real thing. There's a reason why we give sugar pills in clinical trials as well as the real pills, because we want to differentiate, because the placebo has real measurable effects on human psychology as well as even human blood parameters and physiology to a certain extent. It can't do everything for someone. The placebo can't be the miracle cure for our life, but it definitely has an effect and it's measurable. Now, there are certain things the placebo just can't touch, right? And so when we get into spiritual figureheads and people who follow them, right, you take people who believe something will happen and they might experience some outcome, but we have to keep in mind that most likely the outcome will be very minimal, but because of the grandeur or the novel experience of it, it will be made by it'll be emphasized millionfold by the mind, by the human mind. It'll be made into this miraculous outcome, or they'll hear a bunch of things and something that started off as maybe very minimal or very small over years and decades of being with this spiritual figurehead or hearing all these other people talk about it, being influenced by environments, all these things, this one tiny experience will evolve and transform into something a lot bigger later, where they actually believe that's what happened instead of the small thing that happened. So a lot of these things happen too within spiritual communities and religious groups. So what we like to say is, okay, take somebody actually experience something, right? From, whatever the ritual, whatever the practice, whatever the religious figurehead may be, take somebody actually experience something. Okay, take that same thing and apply it to a crop. Take the same thing, apply it to a microbe. Take the same thing, apply it to a metal, a ceramic, a polymer, a chemical, right? Can you affect an atom? Can you change an atomic structure with that same ritual, with that same puja? Can you do the exact same thing?
But is it applicable?
If it's legitimate, if that person has a real connection to God.
When we talk about God men, we talk about spirituality and God essentially. I do not know of anybody who has a science experiment done and has clinical trials basis what they preach.
Right.
And here you are talking about putting God in a science lab and then testing what you're trying to sort of preach, practicing that in a lab and coming up with results. I want to understand the entire process of how it happens. But before that, I have a personal question again.
Please.
How did you meet your husband?
So I actually met him for a blessing. He was in the United States, right? This is in 2011.
And how old were you, if I may ask?
20.
20 years old.
I was 20.
Okay.
January. I actually went for my birthday.
Whoa, when was your birthday?
My mother, January 30th. And so it was 2011 when I met him.
Okay.
And so it was a special situation my mother arranged for me as a birthday present. She actually gave me an option. She's like, do you want a birthday party, a cake, all that, or a blessing from a guru? And of course, logically, I said blessing from a guru.
And you were following this guru for how many years till your 20th birthday?
This is my first time meeting him.
Oh, so you had no idea of who he is?
I had no idea, anything, nothing about him.
And you directly chose
and I said,
a blessing
give me the
from
blessing.
A guru instead of a 20-year-old girl who didn't have
no
parties
party,
with
nothing.
friends.
I was just like, give me the guru.
Whoa, that's interesting. And then, and what was that experience like in terms of meeting him and getting that blessing from him?
So the reason why I trusted meeting this guru, right? First of all, I believed in the guru. I understood, what a guru could do when they're actually enlightened. And so for me, my mother, she actually was struggling throughout her entire life, with a whole bunch of issues that she was facing, physical health issues, as well as relationship issues, a bunch of different problems that she has tried everything. She's been to other gurus. She's been to other spiritual leaders. She's been to, Christian churches. She's been to all kinds of different religious institutions. She's tried all types of spiritual practices. She's tried, therapy. She's tried literally anything you could think of, conventional as well as alternative and complementary, right? Other healers, other modalities, anything you could probably think of, she's probably done. And people gave her maybe minimal improvements in her life. Right? Maybe short-term effects, and then things would regress again or go back to normal.
Okay.
And so, but she believed that something was happening, right? She believed in all of this, and I believed in it too. And so my own struggle was this, incredible depression and longing and isolation, this loneliness I had in my life because I was longing to meet this guru and I didn't know when it would happen. And I wanted this connection to God and I didn't know how to make that happen. So that laid me in a very unique situation where I also went into my own kind of depression, and my mother took me to all these places, found no real resolution for it, just, improvements here and there, temporary improvements, if anything. And so she went to this guru before I did. She got a blessing. She heard about the science and everything. And of course, she tried the blessing. And I mean, the blessing persuaded her even more than the science, because it was the first time that somebody actually solved her problem, resolved it 100%. And so she's like...
And what did the guru do? What did essentially your husband do to your mother to solve the problem?
He blessed her. And her relationships, her health problems, everything resolved overnight for her. Some people, it takes more time. I'm not saying all problems will go away, but that was her experience of it.
There are a lot of spiritual leaders and gurus who prescribe a certain practice.
Yes.
And you, on the other hand, I have not met somebody like you who has integrated science into the practice of spirituality and tries to prove a point with facts and figures.
Right.
So does the meditation practice not work at all? Does it need science and credibility?
It does need science and credibility, but it also does work when it's real meditation. That's the thing.
How do you measure consciousness?
You measure its effects. There's no machine, there's no man-made tool that can directly measure consciousness. That's God. That's the expression of God. That is God's essence, is consciousness. So there's nothing that can directly measure it. What can you measure is the intensity of consciousness in that thing. What consciousness does, it programs a very specific reality. So at different levels of consciousness, you have a very set parameters for characteristics and behaviors.
Yeah.
You see that in people, you see that in animals, you see that in, trees, agriculture, plant life. You see that in non-living materials. There are physical constants. There are atomic structures, isotopic abundance, things like that. All are controlled by consciousness. You would change the consciousness behind it. Those things change as well. You measure those effects. You can directly measure that this is happening from a consciousness alteration.
And can you talk about a little bit about the experiments that are done in the lab to make sure that this is a certain level of, this is how you measure consciousness? So if you can talk a little about the experiments that are done in the lab, that will probably help our viewers understand what's different that you are doing versus what we've seen so far.
Right. So I would say one major theme about all this, and we've done clinical research too, so even human experience, we have clinical validation behind that, several clinical trials. But I'll just give you an example. Some of the science data, right, we're using like NASA level science experiments and technologies. Okay. And we've used, third-party institutions. We've gone to, universities and institutions all over the world. We're using like third-party research, like, Eurofins, the European, research nationwide. We're using things that are highly accredited. We're using things that are like, for example, when we're dealing with bacteria experiments, we're procuring the samples from the actual accredited place that provides those kinds of samples. We're not collecting our own samples. We're not doing anything. We're not opening any packages. We're not opening any seals. We're not doing anything like that. The intervention itself, the blessing, it requires no physical touch, and it can be done remotely as well. So even in the lab, we don't even need to be physically present. So even that, risk.
How does that happen? How do you bless remotely? How do you sit in the US and bless somebody from India or in South Africa or in Australia? How does that happen?
You just close your eyes, pray to God, say, God, please bless this. Amaze the scientists. Do whatever you want, God. And God does the work. It's God. God is omnipresent. God exists here as well as in any lab that you can possibly conduct any experiment in, right? Quantum physics has already found, quantum entanglement, where two particles, completely unassociated, different parts of the universe even, right, can somehow have connection to each other without any type of relationship whatsoever. They can just suddenly become entangled with each other. One effect here can affect this particle over here. Right? The same thing, that's what this experiment is. That's also how we know it's consciousness. It's not another type of energy, a healing energy or some kind of force, because energy, science has found that energy has a quality to it, and that's called energy decay. Okay. So in the same way you take a light bulb, right? You plug in a light bulb and you see it has like this aura of light. Well, if you go 20 meters, 100 meters away, you start to see the light fade. It gets dimmer the further you are from it. That's the energy decay of the photons from the light bulb. Okay. Right? The light bulb's emitting light, and that energy of that visible light, that electromagnetic energy, has a limit. It has a decay once it crosses time and space. After a while, it fades away. It collapses. It degenerates. It decays, right? And this is a real scientific phenomenon. Same thing. If this is just another energy, right? If it's a byproduct, if it's another phenomena like that, then it would have a decay. If I'm blessing it from, like, if I'm blessing a group of people, which is what we did with our clinical trials. If I'm sitting in the United States and they're sitting in India in a lab somewhere, right? There should be a decay of energy if it's coming from me.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's coming from God. Right? That's why we say divine connection, not Dahryn connection or Guruji connection. It's divine connection. We are the connecting piece. That's all that we're doing. We're not a replacement for. We're just that jumper cable. We help facilitate. We strengthen your connection to the God of your understanding. And you get the benefits from that connection, not from me. I don't know what your problems are. I don't know anything about you, but God knows everything about you. That's why the same blessing works, right, so universally on everything you apply it to, whether it's even a non-living material, a person, whether it's Jane Doe, Bob, whether it's Deepak, whether it's anybody, right? No matter where you apply it to, it seems to have the intelligence to know what to do in that given situation.
And how can one individual come to you for a blessing?
So we do, most of our blessings are remote. They're all online. You sign up for a blessing, right? Some people, they can submit their problems, certain focuses, areas that they want help with. And, we just request God, please bless them. That's it.
And is this a program that people enroll in? Is this a practice that people do? What's the entire process like?
This is through our nonprofit organization. It's all nonprofit. It's called Divine Connection International, divineconnection.org. People go on the website. They sign up for what's called a membership. And basically everything in the membership includes, you have different levels of membership, which means, you can have different amounts of this energy, this blessing, whatever you want to call it. And as well as that, people get access to the workshops and different other, programs and things that we have available to them. But ultimately, all of the money and everything goes to help further promote our mission and our vision for the nonprofit. So that's the whole way that people can actually participate in this vision and this mission and also receive the blessings and transform their own lives.
But has it ever been difficult promoting your vision? Has it ever been? Yeah.
Absolutely.
What have people told you so far in this journey that you've been on?
Oh, it depends on who you talk to. Everybody. When you get to something that's so fundamental, that affects science, that affects wellness, that affects spirituality, that affects people, that affects everything, everybody has a problem with it. Even though you're talking about data, even though everything's legitimate and it's the most substantial and hardcore evidence, like many scientific discoveries, some of them only have one peer-reviewed publication or one significant study behind it for science to accept it as real. We have 6,500. Science still looks at it and says, I don't believe this is possible.
Yeah.
We've had scientists actually reject a publication before. This happened recently. Even after having over 670 publications, we had a scientist, right? We submitted this publication to the board of peer reviewers, right? The editor of the journal, right? The chief editor, he's the one that, is ultimately in control. And he sent it to all of the PhD level scientists. And I believe at this point, there was maybe 4 or 5 PhD level scientists on this particular journal. Every single one of them looked at the study, approved us, said it's green light, everything's perfect, it looks great. The data is unprecedented, it's incredible, publish it. They got green light to go. Okay, we had no issues. He sent it to one more PhD level scientist, same thing, green light, go. Sent it to one more. He kept sending it to another PhD level scientist, one after another, trying to find one that would say no, because he didn't want to publish it. Not because it had any illegitimacy or there was any problems with the study or the data, because he simply didn't believe it was possible and didn't want to publish it. So he wanted an excuse. He wanted one scientist to say, no, it's fraudulent. There's something wrong with it. It's a scam. All of them, all 9 of them said it's good. Publish it. And he still decided not to, simply because he said, I don't believe this is possible. So you can imagine.
And there are thousands and millions of people still, not just in India, not just in America, but the whole of the world, when more people get to know about Divine Connection and what your nonprofit does and what you do as a spiritual leader, I'm sure there will be more people who will come up to you and say, Dahryn, I'm sorry, but this is absolute nonsense. Yeah. What are you doing? And
you just read the comments after this podcast. I guarantee you'll have at least a couple. Very sorry, by the way, for that.
no, I'm sure
You'll have
sure.
at least a couple who will say, why do you have the scam artist on your channel? Or why do you have a white foreigner? Right? You want to promote your views.
I've had this before.
You want to promote your views.
So you're saying a white foreigner would give me more views?
Do a background check. I've seen those comments. People have an agenda or they have a certain thing in mind. You can give them all the evidence in the world and they'll never believe it. Nobody, even scientists. Scientists find it risky because what's happening, it's going to upend everything they know about science. It's going to change everything. We've changed physical laws of nature. We've been able to create new species and new materials. We've done things that science says can't happen, right? We're talking about eligibility requirements for meditation. Those are the eligibility requirements for enlightened consciousness.
And
you
why
can do what nature can do.
Sorry to cut you, Dahryn. Like you can tell there are a lot of thoughts which sort of tells me that I want to understand, has there ever been a point where why have not many more people been able to do what you guys are doing? Or why has there not been any other leader not been able to do whatever they're doing with the science backing? Because I've not heard this.
I mean, it's hard to say why. I mean, one of the reasons could be there hasn't been a lot with the actual potential to create that kind of outcome, right? They actually do not have the substance to back up what they're saying. That's one thing, right? They're not actually the real deal. Okay. Not actual
in real
enlightenment.
terms, yeah.
Okay. So that's one category of why they might not do it. Another one might be that, maybe they're just not aware, right? Maybe they're not concerned. They don't care. Right. That's another thing. Maybe they're happy within whatever they're doing. But ultimately, our mission and vision is not just to get a bunch of followers to believe us. Right. That's not our goal. Right. And also there's a certain degree of, even scientists can sometimes be nefarious as well. Yeah. So you have to make sure you're working with the right scientific community who actually wants the truth.
What's the goal here with what you're doing?
So the goal with what we're doing, right? Obviously, to transform people's lives is one aspect of that. And we've done that. We've actually over 300,000 people have benefited from this. So it's not a small number. So we do have the right people who are coming to us who are benefiting from it. And we have hundreds of testimonials, incredible testimonials that people are accounting for miracles. Their lives have transformed. The people who are with us have been with us since 2009, 10, and 11. They don't leave because this is life for them. And these are people, some of them who didn't even believe in God before they came to us, right? So not even belief persuading them to stay. It's the outcome that persuaded them to believe and to stay. Okay. So what we're actually talking about here, though, is why we don't require human testimony or belief is because what this energy is able to do is it can transform agriculture, materials science, microbiology. It's not limited to human life. So what does that mean? If you can change a material, what can you do? You can change industry. If you can change a crop, what can you do? You can change agricultural industry. You don't need human testimonial. You don't need to directly influence or persuade a human. In fact, a lot of time, industry is the pioneer of scientific breakthrough because so many scientists require so much scrutiny, and even then they resist and they ridicule, right? When we said you should wash your hands, right, before you deliver a baby or start to perform a surgical procedure, scientists laughed at that. They ridiculed the scientist, or he wasn't even a scientist at that time, right? When he just recommended it so much that he was in an insane asylum. People ridiculed Einstein. People ridiculed Barbara McClintock, right? When she talked about jumping genes, all of these things people ridiculed because they just refused to believe it, didn't fit within their box, their scientific paradigm of the time. So despite the mountain of evidence, we have enough to say that this is real. But despite the mountain of evidence, you can still have scientists that don't want to claim it's true because it changes everything science knows.
But there's so much, sorry, go on. I think I've been interrupting you a lot in terms of
it's okay.
I have thoughts. Sorry, but go on. You were saying.
So I'm saying when you get involved in industry, which actually we're already in the process of doing, we've already started working with a multi-billion-dollar agricultural provider for chicken, eggs, poultry, right? So we're actually producing better quality chicken, more yield, right? We're more quality product that both benefits the corporation as well as the actual chicken's life itself, as well as the consumer. They're getting better quality product. The consumer, they'll trust the product. You don't need to persuade them the blessing's real. The product will say enough, right? If you can transform materials, we're actually, and on the verge, we've actually conducted experiments and we're getting published, and we're actually reaching out to a bunch of capitalists who are working with AI technology, right? Because AI and a lot of our computations, solar, batteries, energy, a lot of these things require the materials beneath them to work properly. Right? We're limited by our materials that nature has given us. You can't do much with that. There are certain things that we haven't been able to do to cross that barrier to help us improve our technology, to help improve our data processing, our energy, the way energy works, the heat distribution, energy band gaps. A lot of these things we're limited and confined to, right? We're using a huge amount of data and electricity and a bunch of these things, damaging our environment, using a lot of soil and land and things to be able to build these processing centers for AI agencies and things like that. And so if you can actually improve the material, you need none of that.
So how much of your diversification is when you talk about a lot of people or followers who come to you for blessings, how much of your diversification is with humans versus what you do with the non-living things, essentially crops or agriculture or poultry? Because you mentioned that there's a significant impact that can have on crops and yields, and that could help everybody at large.
Yes.
Have you tried to speak to governments to sort of implement this? Because if you think there is science to it and that it can have a huge impact, have you spoken to governments? B, why has it not been done yet? And why I'm so adamant on why has not been done it, because a lot of people will think and believe that because it's so different and because you have so much scientific study and data to prove what you're saying, why has nobody else thought about it before? Why has nobody else implemented this before? Because I'm sure there are more people who understood this much better or worked in the industries before you and the other people associated. Why have not many more people done this before?
All I can say is either nobody's had the courage to, or nobody's cared enough to, or nobody's had the ability to. That's all I can say as to why nobody has done this before.
And have you spoken to governments to sort of implement this?
We're already working with industry level people. And the thing is, we're not telling them about the blessing.
So you're talking about
we're telling people to believe in an unseen mechanism, right? To believe in God and the blessing powers, right?
Yeah.
You can imagine how ludicrous that would sound to somebody who works in IT and technology, right?
I understand, yeah.
So, no, but this is why we're doing it, right? Is because you need to get your foot in the door. So what do we do? So again, we cannot rely on belief, because people, whether they have all the mountain of data or not, they'll believe whatever they want to believe. They'll believe their religious leader as much as they want to believe, despite a mountain of evidence. There are people who still are preaching to their followers from prison. That's how much belief will tell you to believe someone. And then you have people, right, who, despite the mountain of evidence, will still say, no, this isn't true.
Absolutely.
Right, even when it's beneficial, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter, right? Belief, that's the issue. If we can work around belief and not have to utilize belief to get this mission moving forward, which is what we're already doing. We're already producing, right, AI chips, silicone materials. If we just produce the good quality material, we don't have to tell them the way it was produced or what the mechanism behind the creation of it was. We say it's our own proprietary technology. They don't need to know what we did to it. We just say we have the data that shows the effect, that this is different. You try it out, see how you feel. They try it out, they get the outcome. It's something they've never used. They want it. Industry will always follow its wants and desires. It will always follow what makes progress happen. It will always follow outcome. So industry drives progress, sometimes even more than science does. So if we get involved in industry, which they've already started working with us.
You know, what's fascinating to me is the fact that nobody in the last couple of years has tried to copy or do what you guys are exactly doing, or probably question what you guys are doing, Or have you had people who've told you that, oh, hey, this is a scam, why are you following this, etc., etc.? Have you had people or claims? Have you had lawsuits against you?
We've had all kinds of things against us. We've had so many people who have doubted, who've spread defamatory statements online, who's accused us of horrible things that don't make any sense. Like we have so much of people who are willing to fight, despite. Right. This data is there. It's online. You can talk to the scientists. Like we have all these we have all of this, and there's still people who say it's not real. So, we have had a lot of resistance from many different people, and that's fine, because honestly, that's what happens when you're breaking something that's so fundamental that everybody's created and wrapped their entire lives around. I think it's understandable for there to be a lot of resistance. I'm not against the resistance. I'm actually in support of it, because I feel that for the first time, people are kind of thinking for themselves, even if it's a little more biased.
Yeah, so
at least they're kind of
a lot of people.
Yes. And so I would rather them see the outcome, even if it comes through an industry scale, and reveal that it's God doing the work later, right, than trying to persuade people that God can do something, work with us. I'd rather work the other way around, work covertly and get people to trust it first through the outcome and the data before I get them to believe that God's real. One is easier than the other. And naturally, I really feel, and this is why everybody's come to us, why everybody stays with us, the outcome speaks for itself. It's like there's a Nobel Prize winning scientist who we presented this data, and he was reviewing it. And he was like, it's hard to believe that this is real. And he was like, well, do you believe it? And he's like, well, it's difficult to believe, but it's impossible to deny because the data's here. So we actually love that line. We keep it with us all the time. But the data, the outcome, that's really what does the work, what speaks for itself. It will transform human life. The reason why people have left religion and spirituality is because science and medicine and technology have provided more for those people than religion has.
Whoa, that's a huge statement.
It is a huge statement, but it's true. Right? If you actually look at, if you have an infection, most people are likely to go to a doctor than to ask for a prayer. Maybe they'll do both, but most likely.
I'm sure. I mean, right? I don't think these two things are comparables. I think when you have an injury or when you get hurt.
I agree. They're not comparable. Yeah. But at the same time, there are a number of people, especially the younger generation, and we've seen these in reported numbers. This is not my blanket statement, right? This is the real reported number that the younger generation, especially because of their use of technology and their dependency and, the dopamine hits they get, all those things, right? They've started to rely and depend on technology and science more so than whatever they've seen the other generations do with religion and spirituality.
Find out in terms of the mental health pandemic, there's been a huge increase in stress levels, in frustration, in people feeling inadequate in themselves. Yes. Not being able to sort of perform at levels where they would like to perform. Mm-hmm. Small things mattering to people much more than they should have. Mm-hmm. Seeing a snake and thinking it's a rope. Yeah. It's been at varying levels. It's being at varying degrees where mental health has become far more important in today's time and age.
Yes.
When you talk about consciousness, when you talk about varying levels of consciousness, some have low levels, some have high levels. Mm-hmm. Any individual, any 20-year-old, 25-year-old, 30-year-old who's watching this episode, mm-hmm. how can they work on their levels of consciousness? How can they increase their level of consciousness so that they can reach to a point where not a lot of small things affect them, bother them in their daily life?
Well, we have to understand what actually has an influence on consciousness. You can't reverse engineer. You can't work backward.
Okay.
So human effort in and of itself is not what influences consciousness. Everything is an expression of consciousness.
Yep.
So you can't change the program with the program that's running off of it.
Okay.
You have to change the program itself. And the only one that's done that is the one that created it, and that's God. Mm-hmm. So the only true way is to develop a deeper connection to that authority, which truly wants our growth, right?
And how does that happen?
So from my experience and from what we've seen with these studies, these blessings is an enlightened guru or somebody who is enlightened can do that for us. They can help us. And they can establish us to the point where you don't need them anymore. It's not like a permanent dependency upon the guru. It's to evolve you to the point either where you've fulfilled the needs that you want in your life, then you can go about and live your life however you want it. A lot of people, maybe they only want that. Maybe they just want a quick fix for a few things. Some people want to go all the way. They want enlightenment. I'm an example of what can happen when you stick with the guru and follow the divine principles and fundamentals, which is just being a pure heart. Right. And purity, that's the truest, greatest connecting piece between us and the creator. Right. It's like the yogic path, the first 2 steps are the do's and don'ts. Those are just ways of developing us into a state of purity. It's developing that connection. It's helping us see life clearly. It's helping us to do less harm to ourselves and others, even unintentionally, and to promote and lead our lives in ways that actually gives us more consciousness, more energy. So it's simple things like, be less selfish, treat others with respect, like be kind, be caring, be compassionate, empathetic, caring, loving. It's like we've lost sight of the value of those things and have gone more focused on the practices and the tricks. And I'm telling you that itself will not do it.
It happens all across the world, so to speak, not just India, where people believe what they see. Maybe they do some tricks or whatever. I don't know what sort of a lot of leaders do.
Right.
But there's a lot of brainwashing that happens.
Yes.
And because of that, they're tricked into believing that what they're saying is the absolute truth, and which is the gospel truth, which is absolutely not the case.
Yes.
And because of that, they experience a lot of, psychotic behaviors, and they have fits and experiences that they've not seen before.
Right.
They have bodily changes, which you don't really see otherwise. So to deal with such an issue at such a huge scale, I find it very difficult to think that there's a leader who's trying to mind wash you to fulfill his or her agenda.
Right.
Which becomes very difficult for an individual, which is probably why a lot of people who do not really believe in a lot of these gurus.
Right.
Because there is a certain level of skepticism.
Yes.
There you hear scams happening, you hear extortion happening, you hear harassment happening, sexual harassment as well. You've seen cases which is public news now. So who to believe, how to believe still remains a big question.
Yeah.
Probably what you're doing is science backed, scientifically proven. Maybe that brings in a certain level of credibility, but that will also bring a certain level of question as to whether this is real. Because whoever wants to believe will believe. You can't sort of change them.
Yeah.
So I know, we're at a crossroad thinking whether science will benefit or whether science will make it easier for people to believe in, or will it just remain another facade, so to speak?
Well, I truly believe that when there's so much need and demand in the world, right, in the same way that people end up with these religious gurus and everything is because of need, because they're desperate, because they want something, whether it's just a simple fulfillment of their faith or belief or whatever it is. There's always a need that drives humans to wherever they are today. There's always a need or a desire that guides human life. And so when you look at the strains and the chaos and the pain that's in the world today, the massive amount of suffering, I don't think we're getting better with suffering. I think we're getting worse, right? I think that suffering is more prevalent now than ever. It's always been prevalent, but I feel like it's a lot more marketed maybe, and a lot more, at least types of suffering have gotten more, right? They've expanded, they've increased.
Yeah, because a lot of people who are traditional overthinkers. I am a typical overthinker. I would make an elephant out of a mole, thinking, oh, this is such a big situation, but it's actually a mole. It's actually nothing. But I would make a situation bigger and bigger in my head than it actually is.
Right.
And that would bring me much more suffering than when I see the outcome. Right. I'm like, hey, this was actually a mole. This was not even like a rat or a mouse. It was just like the smallest thing. Yeah, it turned out to be good. So I don't know. What do you have for people who are traditional overthinkers?
So overthinking, I really feel we have clinical trials on mental and emotional health problems, and stress is usually right? The greatest cause of our mental distress.
Correct.
Is our inability to manage stress. Science, conventional science, therapy, everything, they don't have a solution. They say stress management. That's not stress resolution. It's management. It's deal with your stress.
Correct.
Don't get rid of it. Deal with it. That's their answer. And there's no universally applied solution that we can apply to every single person.
Absolutely.
It's not like this is a stress drug. You take this, your stress goes away.
Correct.
Right? Or this therapy works in everyone. Right? If it's a real treatment, if it's a real answer, it could work on everyone equally.
You can curb it, you can't cure it.
Right. So that's science's solution, right, to that option. Right? We've seen in our clinical trials, right, on all people with severe, so we're not like, even dealing with like, I felt a little sad yesterday, right? We're talking about people with like suicidal tendencies, severe mental and emotional health problems, right? That modern science typically might not even want to touch, right? People with PTSD, people with, chronic sleep problems, the huge amount of fatigue, ADD, ADHD, everything under the sun regarded to those things, poor relationships, poor finances, all these things as a result of, mental and emotional health crises as well. And so we've been able to take all of these situations and even using the NIH toolbox for cognition and motor function, right, over a span of 180 days, right, on 4 clinical trials, right, 3 of which we've done the NIH toolbox. One of them we've done over 130 blood parameters, right, would influence things that psychology doesn't influence, like the Klotho protein. Even the best methods have no ability to influence the Klotho protein more than marginally. We've seen almost 700% improvement in the Klotho protein in our clinical trials with NIH toolbox and cognition and motor function results, right? This is something that we've never seen across clinical trials, any treatment or drug being able to positively influence, right, all of those parameters.
Yeah.
Right. We usually see an adverse effect because we're usually trying to tell if a drug or a therapy has a negative effect.
Yeah.
We usually don't see the opposite. We've seen nearly 100% improvement across every single tested parameter for the cognition and motor function parameter from the NIH toolbox, which is the gold standard, the most credible and objective way of measuring your cognition and motor function. Very hard to influence or alter the data. It's stored in a server in the United States. It's locked in there. You can't go back and change results. You don't know what question is going to be asked. And these are double-blinded protocols with placebo groups. When in these same clinical trials, right, because we've seen improvements in cognition, motor function, which is just an indication of the mind's ability, right? This is the mind's ability to get the work done from the rest of the body. It's the mind's job to make the body work properly. When the mind's in havoc, that's where you see chronic illness happen. That's why you see stress go way out of proportion. It's the mind's ability to not handle stress. It's not stress impacting the mind. It's the mind is unable to handle stress, right? So it's coming from a cognitive point. It's coming from a structure of the brain, right? You can't change the structure of the brain except through consciousness unless you apply some really, huge amount of effort and time. And you can only do that maybe to small degrees, not to the level we've seen with nearly 100% improvement across all tested parameters. This is showing that the mind is operating, the brain is operating at a different level. As a result, all of these people across these clinical trials, their mental and emotional health problems completely resolved. Every single one of them.
A breakdown what a blessing essentially means for people who are listening. Is it just like blessing people, or is it something that I'm sort of missing the point here?
No, it's so scientifically, that's the intervention we use to get all these results, right? But what a blessing is, it's coming from an enlightened being, right? Someone who has that enlightened level of consciousness, they're evolved enough, they're established there. So in that state, right, they're able to go into a state of trance, state of that thoughtlessness that we talked about, right? In that state of thoughtlessness, they make a request to God. It's a prayer to God where they ask, God, please, bless this material, bless this person, bless this organism, whatever it may be, you do the work, God. We don't have to even request anything specifically. It's just a general bless this. And then God does the work. But it's like, as long as the prayer is reasonable, right? Obviously, God's not going to have us, let's turn this planet Earth into Mars, right? There's certain things within reason. But as long as it's reasonable requests, it's like, God will usually listen to the prayer and apply the change according to whatever God thinks. We don't want to say, like, for the material, we don't want to know. I mean, we don't know what will what will be required for the material to function at its greatest capacity. We don't have that scientific research yet, maybe, or we don't even know ourselves. It's like, will it be an influence on the isotopic abundance, the crystallite size or structure? Will it change the atomic nucleus? And we've seen all of these things change. We don't know how much, what to do for what material, all these things. So we just request, bless this so that it's does whatever it needs to do. Right, for this experiment.
This blessing for a particular issue that they're facing, or is it in general blessing the human?
It's just a general blessing, and God knows what the issue is. You don't even need to tell. Like in the clinical trials, we had no idea what issues each person had. We had no idea who the people were. Never saw them, never met them before.
They're all anonymous.
Didn't even know their names. Didn't know their names or their problems, nothing about them. It's double-blinded. We were blinded too. We were blinded. They were blinded, except for the placebo group that believed they got a blessing, right? And then the control group that obviously didn't get anything. And then even the investigators, everybody's given a random number, given a random day to come in. They don't know who's in what group, right? So, and then, same thing. It's like, how does the energy know what to do with the material versus an organism versus a crop, a bacteria? It just knows, right? If this is God, then God knows everything. Why do we need to step into that place and request for anything specific? We just request for the best outcome and for God to take care. And God does.
Oof. This was something that I mean, when I was reading up about you and what you do, it seemed a little impossible, and it would still seem a little incomprehensible in terms of whether this is possible or not.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you agree, because there are lots of these things that you do or you've done, including trials and clinical research and getting those sample size in place, to have people believe in what you guys do, because it's a little different from what we've seen, is a little difficult. I might still take some more time to comprehend the entire conversation, because I'm going to take a day off and just think about what we spoke about.
You need a whole day off now.
Yeah, I need blessings. I need a day off to essentially comprehend the entire conversation. But yeah, thank you so much for the conversation. This was fantastic. As a host, I got to learn a lot about spirituality, science, and tech. I always thought that science and God do not work together and in tandem.
Yeah.
But you are doing it, and there are a lot of people who believe in it, thousands and thousands of people who believe in it. So yeah, few learnings that were there that I really appreciate. I really appreciate this conversation. I really appreciate that you were open enough to talk about a lot of things.
Sure.
And that's probably what we as hosts really expect of our guests. When we don't have guests who don't talk openly, we feel we've not been able to have a great conversation.
Yeah.
But sadly, that wasn't the case. I'm glad you were able to open up and have a great conversation. So thank you so much for this conversation. Really appreciate this.
Thank you.
And if you have anything for our Indian audience, if you could, you can, this is your moment to tell them. And how have you felt being on this show, on this podcast? You've done multiple other. So how different was it? Overall, what was your experience on that camera? Go for it. This is your time.
I mean, this is one of my favorite podcasts I've been on, truly. I'm not just saying that. And the reason for that is because this is like probably one of the most sincere conversations. It seems like, sometimes I'll talk to people and you can just tell it's like resistant, but they're just trying to follow because we made an agreement, right? Where this one actually, it feels like we're just trying to get to the truth of the matter. And we're just curious and we're having a discussion. That's what it really just feels like. And honestly, that's kind of hard to come by with podcasts. It's like either, trying to follow some, script or trying to follow, something that's already planned or put in place and things go off script and everything. But I love this because this just felt real. And I love the way you responded. I love that you weren't just like ready to say yes to everything. The fact that you were ready to challenge as well, because I agree, a lot of it should be challenged. And I feel like if there wasn't some kind of skepticism or resistance, it would limit the message that I have. Because I feel like you pressing back and having this kind of skepticism and resistance just kind of helps me demonstrate how big this is. If it wasn't that big, there probably wouldn't be a lot of fight back. So it proves it more than anything to me. But I'm grateful. I think you've been a lovely host. I felt like you asked incredible questions. And I felt like the conversation was beautiful. But I mean, again, I would love for people to come like to the website, read more, divineconnection.org. That's where we have everything available. All of our science research, it's all public knowledge, all public information. It's available in over 3,000 universities in over 100 countries all over the world.
Wow.
So this is not just like you have to go to our website. You can go to almost probably any university library and find our research there. The National Institutes of Health, Harvard, Cambridge, Oxford, right? It's everywhere. So you can go anywhere and read about it. It's legitimate. It's there. You do your own research. You read about it yourself. You'll find all the data, everything you want to. But visit our website if you want the easiest way to find it. It's all there. All of our research, the summary of everything we're doing, even our future ventures. You join our mailing list, stay up to date. Even if you don't want to do a membership program, we'll have products in the future. We'll have blessed foods. We'll be working in the AI industry soon. We'll be doing all these types of things. So even if you don't want to risk it, if you don't want to get involved, but all of this really goes to further our mission and our scientific research to help us expand our research. We plan on even duplicating these clinical trials in the United States and other countries as well, right? So we can show the true breadth and scope, as well as, it costs more money, but again, people help with that. But hopefully we want to get to a point where when we get to an industry scale level approach, that we depend on the individuals less and more on these big industries to help support us, so that we can actually help lower prices and potentially get rid of them altogether.
Sweet.
So
Sweet.
That's something we'd love to do, but at the moment we can't viably do that. So we need to put a price tag to it. But we still would love people to check it out, try, ask questions, whatever they want to do. And we
drop a comment. Please drop a comment.
Please tell us how you feel.
But thank you so much, Dahryn, for being kind. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
It was wonderful having you over. And to our audience, please drop a comment. What you guys thought of this conversation. Your raw, honest thoughts, please put them in the comment section. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. We have a second channel called Deepak Parekh Clips. So we post short snippets from the main episode on that channel. So subscribe to that as well. You'll see it somewhere here or the other. But thank you so much for tuning in. See you same time next week, 6 p.m. Friday with a fresh new episode. Till then, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.